Okay, well, we'll get started then. So tonight's topic, fear not the triggers. Now, don't expect these catchy titles every week because it's not going to happen. I don't know what came over me today regarding this one, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get some more in the future. But yes, triggers. So I see triggers everywhere. I hear people say, oh, I was triggered by that, and oh, that triggered me. And I just wanted to kind of get to the bottom of what triggers means, especially hi Yvonne, hi Daniela, thanks for joining us. Get to the bottom of what triggers means, especially if you've got historic trauma or attachment issues, or even if you're not quite sure what's going on but you've noticed things trigger you in some way. So triggers at the basic sort of level is, a trigger can be a person, it can be a place, it could be a smell, a feeling, a sound. It's something that has an immediate physical or emotional stress response. So stress responses are kind of, you know, when you get hot, you may feel anxious, so you get kind of like a panic attack, although it can get like that. But you know, those are very, very early stages. You might start breathing heavily, you feel like your heart's coming out your chest, you're getting your racing thoughts, you might find that your limbs go numb, which is kind of, or you get pins and needles even though you've not been sat on yourself. Those sorts of responses, or you might get an emotional response. You might really lash out, you might jump to anger. So you know, sometimes when the kids are really playing up and they have that one thing that really just pushes your buttons and you just can't help but yell, that is a trigger. So that, if we were going to do another session, we could maybe unpick some of those triggers that you've noticed, but because we're sticking to the kind of foundations tonight, we won't go too deep into that. Maybe that's another live. Okay, so these two different types of triggers that can trigger you. So the first one is your internal ones. So internal ones are kind of your emotions, so or feelings. So you may feel angry, you may feel loneliness, anxiousness, vulnerable, abandoned, frustration. You may also notice some memories coming back in flashes. Again, this depends on the severity of the trauma, or if you're even aware of what's gone on in the past. Sadness, tension, all of these kind of bad feelings, I guess you could label them under. Another one is external. So external factors can trigger you. So like I said before, maybe your children's behaviour, your work colleagues' behaviours. So people can trigger us, certain people. Breakups, watching the news is a massive one. I mean, there's some horrific stuff on there. Yeah, which can be very triggering on lots of levels. Anniversaries, birthdays, Christmases, Mother's Day, Father's Day, smells, very specific places. If you witness or observe what's gone on in the past, sadness, tension, all of these kind of bad feelings, I guess you could label them under. Another one is external. So external factors can trigger you. So like I said before, maybe your children's behaviour, your work colleagues' behaviours. So people can trigger us, certain people. Breakups, watching the news is a massive one. I mean, there's some horrific stuff on there. Yeah, which can be very triggering on lots of levels. Anniversaries, birthdays, Christmases, Mother's Day, Father's Day, smells, very specific places. If you witness or observe, evening Joe, or observe something that is similar, even if you can't quite remember what that event was, it still might trigger us and we don't really know why. Arguments, holidays, hearing similar words or a tone of voice can sometimes trigger us. So sometimes it's not always what exactly was said, but it was said in that tone. You know, you might hear people say, oh, don't take that tone of voice with me. That's what's triggered them. Movies, books, you know, the list is endless. So how do we go about managing? Well, first of all, have you noticed any triggers? If you'd like to write in the comments if you've noticed any triggers, we'll see if we've got a few examples we could go through. I'm trying to think to some of my triggers in the past. God, there's just there should be plenty. Let me see. I don't get triggered because I've done the work now, because I've gone through things. There's not much that triggers me anymore. It tends to depend on, like, if I'm hungry or if I've had a rubbish night's sleep. Oh, I remember once I was in a therapy session with a child, and they were displaying very sort of like they would steal my kit. Even like they'd take a handful of sand at the end of the session and just steal my stuff, or they'd sneak a pen or something and do it really, really obviously, and that really used to trigger me. And I remember it was a good year ago, 2 years ago now, and I went back to my clinical supervisor and I said, it just triggers me so much. And when we kind of traced it back, it kind of came from my good girl syndrome. So I was the eldest child, and I was brought up to be good all the time. So things like stealing would go really against the grain for me. And this little girl, I think she was like 6, but she was stealing. So it was about, okay, so what's she trying to tell me here with her behaviour? And we started to unpick it a bit in sessions, and I sort of said, oh, I noticed that, you know, you like to take some of the kit home with you and things like this. And it turned out that she didn't want the session to end, or she wanted a reminder of how nice the session had been. So there I was being all triggered and bit put out by the whole situation, and really sort of confused as to why this 6-year-old was making me just like, I don't want to be in session. She always steals my stuff. Obviously kept it all in front of the client, but behind the scenes and internally I was like, oh, she's going to take my stuff again. And it was nothing to do with that. This child was just, this is the only person that's given me the time of day, who it shows up for me every week, who's engaging, who I feel safe with, and she wanted to take a piece of that home. So then we had to do a bit of work around how it was okay to leave everything with me, because I was always going to bring it back. I had to be really consistent. So she did come out the other end after the I think I did about 6 weeks with her. I was in Manchester Women's Aid then, so it was very strict and we could only do the 6 sessions. So she did manage to come out the other end of that, which was really good. But yeah, so let's have a look. So who are these triggers down here? I get triggered by a lack. Yes, yeah, definitely. I get triggered by a lack of respect or appreciation. Yeah. Because of how it was a very strict rule at home when I was growing up. Oh yeah, I've done this for you. You should be grateful that I've done this. That can be quite a typical parent one to do. I think I mentioned it in the last live about parents sort of living their youth vicariously through us, and yes, I've shown up and done all these wonderful things for you. I've put this food on the table. I've got this roof over your head. You know, you should appreciate that. And it's kind of, well, no, actually, you're the adult and you should be providing these things because I can't do it myself. but you get this guilt complex and this shame that you don't appreciate it or expect it even. So yeah, I can see why that would be totally triggering. Being in a group or crowd and feeling desperately alone, people walking away from me in disrespect. Oh yeah, where do you think that comes from? So Sharon, when we finish, I'm going to talk a little bit about managing, and it'll be great for you to do some of these techniques and just see if you can work out where that maybe came from. There could be a couple of different things there, that being in a crowd and feeling desperately alone. Yeah, I mean, like I shared last week, one of my big things was my best friend not coming to the same primary school as me when I was 6, 7. And that caused me to feel so alone in groups of people. I had some fabulous friends and I had some fabulous women, fabulous men, you know, a great community around me a lot of the time, but I still felt really alone. People walking away from me in disrespect. Yeah, answer some of these questions afterwards and we'll see where you get to, Sharon. So oh God, that sounds like my mum. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I get triggered by someone who raises their voice at me as I was shouted at a lot as a child. It brings me to tears, but now I could give as good as I get, if not louder. Yeah, so you've learned to sort of stand up for yourself. Oh, it's great that you've noticed things like that. Yeah, well done. So there's some fabulous kind of examples there of different triggers, and they can come out of nowhere. Like I was talking about the other day on my interview, we don't always know where it came from, and it's not always super important to know where it came from. It's to notice that we've got it and we have this response, whether it be emotional or whether it be physical, and manage it, you know, because we don't want to walk around being triggered all the time, because, you know, what sort of a life is that for ourselves? And we're the ones in charge of this life now, you know, our past isn't. So some of the ways to do it, first and foremost, is, do you know what, I think I'm going to get this tattoo. Just notice all these things. Create a list of the things that trigger you. Not just the sort of the title, but really think about how you respond. Really write down your responses. Write down your responses. Just to catch you up, we're talking about triggers and how to manage them. So yeah, create a list of the things that trigger you, what it is. So for example, if it was the seaside, that triggers you because something, or you had a bad experience at the seaside. But actually physically, emotionally, mentally, what are your responses? So for example, you could get, when you go past the sea, well, for starters, you might actively avoid going to the seaside. You might never have been to the seaside since you was a child, because even just the thought of it triggers you, and you just don't go, you avoid it. Other triggers could be, you know, if you do go to the seaside with your family, it just always ends up being terrible. You argue with your kids, if you've got a partner, you argue with them, you know, it just, your beach ball blows up, just everything that could go wrong does go wrong. You drop your ice cream on the floor, everything. That can also be kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy because of your triggers, because of what happened. So you want to notice all this, get it all down, and then you can start looking at it logically. Knowing them and knowing yourself and how you respond to these things can give you a sense of how to address the triggers. The next thing to do is to create your personalised trauma trigger toolbox. Try saying that after a glass of wine. Okay, so 1, like we said before, be aware of what is happening. Be aware, notice what's around you, notice what your body is doing, what your mind's saying, what those voices are coming through saying. And that's number 2, be mindful. Really engage with yourself, even if it's a case of just standing there and breathing. Doing your balanced breathing, 6 in, 6 out, and just focusing on you for a few seconds, just while you kind of notice actually what it is. Catch yourself. So if you notice you're going to shout at someone because their tone of voice hasn't been so suitable, stop, breathe, remind yourself that you're safe, and then see how you feel when you come to respond. Being kind to yourself, however that looks to you. You know, some people enjoy the bath, some people like to read the book, some people like to binge watch Netflix, whatever being kind, or hot chocolate in the evening, whatever being kind to yourself looks like to you, make sure you make time for it. Healing is tough. Healing is a journey, and you'll come back to it time and time again, but each time you do, especially when you've got a personalised trauma trigger toolbox, you'll find it easier. It'll get easier and easier, but when you first start doing it, it can be a bit of a shock to the system, so please be kind to yourself. Be grounded. Learn how to ground yourself. There's loads of YouTube videos. If anyone would like me to do a bit of a meditation grounding one on here, I'd be happy to do that. Leave your comments, let me know. But it's basically coming back into yourself, you know, and sending those roots down under your feet. Just be present. The next one is being supported. So this can come in the form of friends, family, or myself, if you'd like to book some coaching with me, and we can go through things. Once you've got all your triggers listed, you've got your trauma trigger toolbox up and running, so you know how to keep yourself safe, then it's what's next. How can you start managing that? How can you reduce those triggers? How can you feel safe even if you go to the seaside? Okay, so have you heard of havening? There's a really, really lovely one. So I'll just do it quick. I know I was going to finish, but I'll just do it quick for you. So there's a really, really lovely move. It's my favourite little bit of havening. Now, I'm not qualified to do havening. It's just something I've learned on the side. But a really nice one. So do your deep breathing, relax down, but just stroking from your shoulders down to your elbows. It just, even just doing this and I'm not relaxed, I don't know what it is. It's just such a lovely feeling. I think it must emulate like you being hugged as a kid or something. I'm not quite sure, but your whole nervous system just goes, it's so lovely. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll speak some more about those. While I'm on, has anyone got any questions about that? It was a quick run through about triggers, because I feel it is important to know, and it is, you're not going crazy when you have these immediate responses. I heard a really lovely one to end on. Where would your safe space be? So if we are visualizing and taking those deep breaths and just enjoying the moment to be calm and still, so we're doing a bit of the havening and we're taking the breaths, where would your safe place be? I always go to the forest. I really love the forest. I think that's why I enjoy gardening so much. I'm such a nature girl. Has anyone else got a favourite place that they like to go, or a safe place that just makes them all nice and warm and fuzzy inside? Okay, well, thank you for coming on live. It's been so lovely to have so many of you tonight, and really great. It's so much easier for me to do these when I've got someone to talk to. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate you coming on. And have a lovely week. I'll try and pop on live at some point during the week and just catch you up with everything. But in the meantime, feel free to have a chat with each other, share, like. If you find something that you think this group will be interested in, please pop it on. You know, it'll be great to get going. Right, have a nice evening, everyone, and I shall speak to you soon. Bye all.